Hello there and welcome to the weekend wrap. We're back from the international break and we've got highlights from 9 matches to bring you this evening with quite a bit of late drama to look forward to. So let's see what's coming up over the next 90 minutes. Manchester United were in need of a morale-boosting win over Roberto De Zerbi's Brighton at Old Trafford. Ange Postecoglou was hoping to lead his Tottenham side to a 4th straight win with Sheffield United, the visitors in North London. And winless Everton were hoping to beat Arsenal at Goodison Park for the 4th season in a row. And I'm joined in the studio by a couple of former Toffees, as it happens, Don Hutchinson and Jermaine Beckford. But before we get underway, there was a moment of silence ahead of every Premier League match this weekend as clubs and fans paid tributes to those affected by the tragic events in Morocco and Libya. For our first match, we're heading to Old Trafford. Erik ten Hag handed a first start to Rasmus Højlund. 6 changes for Brighton, with Estepinian and March missing out entirely. Michael Bridges and Pien Mullenstein were there for us.
It's bad when the result can change our style, no? And we are working about it. To don't lose our characteristic, our quality, to score more goals possible. Because today we scored 3 goals, but we had many chances to score again. No?
The first chance we concede, and we concede a goal. And then we had a period in the game, it was quite difficult, but we fought back, and then we get a goal. At least we thought we get a goal, and then it's disallowed. So, it's difficult in this period, and it's not falling our sides, but will change. We will fight back as we stick together and play as a team, stick to the rules. Then we will return.
Now, the first thing we have to say is well done to Brighton, who were brilliant, and that was them making 6 changes going into that game against Manchester United. For United, though, 6 points from the first possible 15 available. How would you describe that performance?
I thought Ten Hag got schooled off Roberto De Zerbi in terms of the tactics. But I think more worrying, I think, from Man United's fans' point of view, was how easy it was for Brighton. And when you look at that graphic there, if Man United thought they were ever in a title race on match day 1, they're not anymore. They're 9 points behind Man City after 5 games, 3 losses in. It's been one of their worst starts ever.
Yeah, it is. It is their worst ever start after 5 games of a Premier League season. And it wasn't meant to be this way, was it, Jermaine? After all that he accomplished in his first full season only last season. Trophy after 6 years, top 4 finish, Champions League football and return to Old Trafford. Have they gone backwards?
It seems like it. The players that he's brought in don't seem like they're making any progress. They don't seem like they're getting any better. They're actually looking a little bit worse than when Manchester United bought them, which is bizarre, you know. It's disappointing to see how bad they do currently look, because without Marcus Rashford in that game there, I don't think there was really a real threat. The new guy up front, Højlund, I think he's got something about him. They saved him a little bit because he's coming back from I think it was his back injury. Yeah. So they've got to look after him a little bit and ease him in. But apart from those two, there was no real goal threat.
I thought the big worry, and it's only my opinion, I think when you look at the starting 11s for Man United and Brighton, if you're Man United and you're Ten Hag, you wouldn't swap any of your players on paper for a Brighton player. You wouldn't, because they're full of really good players, some world-class players.
I mean, Matoma might get a mention.
Over Rashford, maybe, but maybe not. But my point is, it has to come down to the coaching ability of De Zerbi to get this team, who made 6 changes going to Old Trafford, and they were Olaying an hour in and kept the ball for about 35 passes at one time.
So look, a lot's been made of United's midfield. Whether it's been too easy to play through. Now, it looked like he was playing a midfield diamond. So it was changing things a little bit. What shape was he playing altogether?
Well, he tried to play a diamond-ish, and a diamond, an orthodox diamond, is 1 sitting, number 6, 2 number 8s, and a number 10. And that number 10 was Bruno Fernandes. But the fact they were getting pulled all over the place, their diamond was it was ineffective. And it meant that the shape was never there. It was never correct. They were getting played through. And essentially, all they had in possession and look at a threat was Rashford off the left-hand side and Rasmus Højlund, if you could get him any service. The other midfield four in that diamond shape never worked.
Yeah.
So they ended up retreating into a three. Casemiro, your 6, your 2 number 8s, Scott McTominay on one side and Christian Eriksen on the other. And Bruno Fernandes couldn't get a kick, couldn't get a look in. By that point, I think Roberto De Zerbi problem solved and he realised where the spaces were going to be, and that was out wide.
So let's have a look, because it made them look quite unbalanced.
Well, I've played this position before, Manish, in a 3 in midfield, and you've got to be prepared to suffer and go through a lot of work. So we're going to highlight Scott McTominay, and he's got 2 players to deal with. Matoma's to the far left of him. Lamptey is the fullback. Eriksen, top of the screen. He's got Veltman, and he's got Adingra or Lallana, who's pulling wide. So if you keep an eye on those 2 players, they're getting pulled all over the place, and they're constantly being central because they're in a midfield 3. But at the same time, as a midfield player, you've got to look at Scott McTominay here. He's scanning. He's looking at Lamptey. At the very same time, Christian Eriksen's doing the same. So they're worried about the ball going out wide. But because they're in a 3, they've been told to play centrally. So
making them narrow.
Narrow, which is not bad if you've got the ball. But when you haven't got the ball, this can happen. You end up chasing shadows. And what happens is Casemiro is locked onto Danny Welbeck. And he should be prepared now to chase them all the way back in. Look at the yardage. It started at 0 yards. It ends up at 8. So their midfield all of a sudden looks very, very slow. Eriksen, Casemiro. I feel a bit for Scott McTominay, but Bruno Fernandes, slow players. And this is another one, Jermaine, where they bopped them around. And I said in commentary, I'm not sure what the best part of this goal was. Adingra doing this work or the finish or the work to move it out to the left.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just look how neat and tidy Brighton played the ball. 1 touch, 2 touch passes. I'm not sure who is this Eriksen?
No, so what we've got Scott McTominay here.
McTominay.
But look at the communication. So Scott McTominay should go to Lamptey to his left, and Dalot should do Matoma. Watch what Scott McTominay does.
So this is a lack of communication between the 2 of them. Those 2 there should be marking the opposite players, which shuts down all of the space. Martinez dives in. I don't know why he doesn't stay on his feet and try and shepherd him a little bit more. Great turn, don't get me wrong, but poor all-round defending for Manchester United.
And it's interesting how you said quite powerfully that De Zerbi outdid Erik ten Hag. Now, De Zerbi's already said, post-match press conference, we saw the shape of their midfield. It took us by surprise. Yeah. But he changed things around and he managed to manufacture a terrific win in the end.
So that's nothing new, Manish. When you're a player and you're a manager and you go into the dressing room 2 hours before a game and an hour and a half, the flip chart comes up, doesn't it? Yep. And as a player, you're sitting there wondering what the opposition are going to do.
Or iPads nowadays.
Probably. But the flip chart used to come over back in the day.
Yeah.
And then the manager would write what he thought system they'd be playing. So therefore, they've got that hour and a half to brainstorm between themselves and come up with what they think our system is going to better the one that they think is going to be implemented. Now, things can change the first 5 minutes. Sometimes things can look a little bit of a lie, and a team could look like they're playing 4-3-3, but they might not. They might switch it to a 4-4-2 within 5 minutes of the game. So you've got to be prepared to problem solve. But I think that's one of De Zerbi's best traits. Problem solving in game. He's like Guardiola. He spots something, because we can all sit there after 90 minutes and go, this is what we saw. These guys do it at the top level, and he's got the ability to spot within 15 minutes what was going to be their strength by not going through the middle because of Man United's diamond, by going out wide where they're getting 2v1s. And in the end, they were in cruise control. You spoke about on paper what the 2 lineups are quite alike, and who would you swap for who? Just have a look at Brighton's starting 11 then, that Roberto De Zerbi had chosen. It totals to £18.4 million. Compare that to Manchester United, who, believe me, would have cost Erik ten Hag. In fact, it did cost Erik ten Hag £350 million. I'm not sure. In comparison. I'm not sure what the best part of this graphic is when I look at it, because when you look at Matoma, £2.5 million, it's probably worth 100.
Still.
Right? Adingra cost £6 million. You compare that to Man United's wingers in Jadon Sancho and Anthony, they're at what, 160, 170 million? Yeah. Or is it Jason Steele who's on a free transfer when they sold Robert Sanchez because this guy's a better footballer? Yeah, he's on a free transfer. And then you look at Mo Dahoud coming in from Dortmund. Great recruitment. Free transfer. The recruitment is off the chart. It's probably arguably the best I think we've seen in decades, I think. How you can get this team together. And by the way, Evan Ferguson was on the bench. You know, some big players. He just got a hat-trick. Some players were on the bench and some players were missing from injuries. That wasn't even his strongest squad. And they go into their first ever European tie in midweek in the best possible form. And it begs the question, what is the ceiling for this Brighton side under Roberto De Zerbi?
currently, I don't think there is one. I think sky's the limit. As long as they keep on playing the way they're playing and doing the things they're doing under De Zerbi, the possibilities are endless. Yeah. This is the first time in their history they're in a European competition, and I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't the last.
If you're Brighton now, very quickly, and you allow players to go, because we've seen McAllister go, Caicedo go, etc., etc., do not let this guy go, De Zerbi. No. He's the best.
Brighton fans must be rubbing their eyes in disbelief. 2-0 up at Old Trafford, they bring on Ansu Fati, on loan from Barcelona. Now, Ange Postecoglou was named August Manager of the Month prior to their match against Sheffield United. The Tottenham boss named an unchanged lineup with Richarlison on the bench. Your commentators in North London, Efan Okoku and Gary Taphouse.
Kulusevski once more shoots at the crowd. It's Bissouma. Excellent goalkeeping from Fodringham. Nicely worked though from Tottenham.
A bit tight on the angle. That's a real chance.
Solomon. Son. Good stop again from Fodringham. This is much, much better from Tottenham. They're really finding their groove.
Played safe.
Ahmed Hodzic looking for Bogle. He'll get there. Chance! Oh, brilliant save! McAtee in a brilliant position. And Vicario called into action for the first time today. Pedro Porro. Maddison. Oh! Goes to ground in the box. That's certainly one that VAR will take a look at. This is Peter Banks' view.
Oh, that's a foul. He's taken out. That should be a penalty.
They don't think that's a clear and obvious error. Wants the return. Oh, he's managed to thread it through to Solomon! Well, he's adamant that that was saved for a corner. A goal kick's been given. Got great distance on that. Over McBurney. Hammer! Quite incredible, isn't it? Tottenham have pushed and pushed, but they haven't found the breakthrough. And then suddenly, Sheffield United from nowhere have slammed the ball into Vicario's net. Richarlison! In the 8th minute of stoppage time, the Spurs player who needed a lift more than any other has headed Tottenham level. Udogie won it back. Højbjerg. Richarlison, Kulusevski. Oh, would you believe it? A virtuoso strike from Dejan Kulusevski, and this place has gone absolutely crazy. One more chance for Sheffield United to launch it into the box. The header's from Robinson, but it's behind. That might be that. Oh, McBurney has been shown a second yellow card.
Not for the challenge, Gary, for dissent. Him and Brennan Johnson were both at each other.
Well, the referee looking at that challenge, and then, as you say, his reaction is angry. And as a result, Sheffield United's misery is complete. A sensational victory for Tottenham Hotspur. Magic for Spurs, tragic for Sheffield United, who looked like they were going to secure their first win since promotion. But Tottenham had other ideas.
You know, we could limit Spurs to efforts from outside the box, which Wes dealt with and dealt with well, and we dealt with balls into our box. So, yeah, I think sometimes you've got to accept that you've got to give something away, and we defended our box very well. And went in front, missed a couple of really good chances ourselves. So to lose a game in that way is obviously really cruel, but it doesn't change our performance.
Fair to say, a fair bit going on during the whole game, and we had to deal with a lot today. And I really liked the way we dealt with it. We showed again real resilience. We dominated the game, just couldn't get that goal. We'd sort of open them up, and then you kind of try and keep things as tight as possible, but they're always a threat. Long throws, balls in the box, and they score. And then again, like I said, you're looking for a reaction, and brilliant for the guys, brilliant for our supporters. It's part of our sort of evolution as a team.
What an unbelievable game then in North London, and a bit of history made in the process. The latest ever recorded winning goal since records began was scored by Spurs and Kulusevski there. 99 minutes and 53 seconds. And also, as it happens, the latest ever comeback, because, of course, Richarlison's goal moments earlier was registered at 98 minutes. I mean,
don't be time wasting anymore.
But that's the thing now, right?
Costly.
Is this going to be now more of a regular thing because we're playing so much injury time at the end of the first and second half?
Well, the reason that we're seeing lots more injury time is because they're trying to stop all the fake injuries and the time wasting and all that anyway. But what's happening is they're adding it on to the end of the game. So, in short, stop wasting time.
Yeah. Hey, listen, it cost Sheffield United. But listen, 13 points from 15 games.
Incredible.
For Ange Postecoglou, who always finds somehow a way to get something out of a game.
Yeah, well, he's built a very good squad, hasn't he? The three subs that come on, I think Brennan Johnson came on, Perisic came on, Richarlison came on, so he's got a very good squad to work with. But I like his style, I like his attitude, and I think the players will appreciate that. Listen, there'll be a time, if we fast forward a couple of months' time, Tottenham might lose 2 on the spin. They're not finished yet, but they're going in the right direction, they're trending the right way because of the football that they're playing. And all footballers will tell you, you can get on board with a manager that wants to play football because you're going to be on the front foot, you're going to try things, you can express yourself. Look at someone like Bissouma, for example. I think Antonio Conte really fancied him. Many others, I think, under Jose, maybe he's 1 or 2 under Antonio Conte, they were probably playing on the back foot, a little bit negative, trying to play counter-attacking football, didn't really have the ball a lot, find themselves 1 or 2 down within 45 minutes. They had to constantly try and come back in second halves. This Tottenham team now looks like they're playing good football. And I think any fan will get on board with your team winning games, playing this way, but they'll also stay on board while you're still playing this football when you're drawing and losing the odd one.
And what a story for Richarlison, who looked like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, Jermaine, only last week, in tears, in a Brazil shirt, because, he missed a couple of really good chances, if I'm not mistaken, against Bolivia. And it's been a tough few months, really, with club and country. But then to come up with a goal and then an assist was a scriptwriter's dream.
It absolutely was. And I think a lot of that has to go down to Ange Postecoglou as well. I think what he does in terms of his man management for the players, not only Richarlison, but Bissouma and a lot of the other fringe players, he's given them that extra confidence that they've been lacking for ages. Something that maybe they were a little bit worried or nervous about being judged by the last managers or didn't want to upset them. Now they seem to be playing with so much freedom and confidence that you're seeing the best of Spurs. What did you say it was? 13 points from 15?
Yeah.
That is incredible. Who would have thought that last season Spurs would be picking up that many points in that many games? Not me. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
They've got Richarlison in there now. Came off the bench. Was fantastic when he came on, by the way. Brennan Johnson, great energy. Lovely little touch.
Maddison's been
around
great.
the corner. Maddison has been a revelation there also. But all of these guys have got a major point to prove to themselves, but also to the club that have invested all this money and trust in them.
You have to be prepared, I think, as a manager and a coach. You have to be prepared to give your individuals freedom. I think some coaches, probably like Antonio Conte, probably like Jose Mourinho, not just those two. This is a great gesture.
I like this.
This is a great gesture because,
take the adulation.
Go on, take it. And
you deserve it.
Yeah, because, we all like to see players do well, but we like to see players on a comeback when it's quite emotional and sometimes it's quite personal. So give him all the credit that he deserves for coming out and issuing that little statement where he said he wants to see a sports psychologist. But my point is, under Postecoglou, I think you have to be prepared to give your players freedom, because as a manager, if you're Antonio Conte or Jose, not just those two, but those two come to mind because they were previous Tottenham managers, if you constantly put the handbrake on and say, Jermaine, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, All of a sudden, when you get it, you're going to think, safe.
What am I supposed to do
well,
now?
I'll play safe.
You're thinking about it rather than just doing it.
But I want to try a trick.
Yeah.
I want to try a Cruyff turn. I want to try this. I want to try that. Express yourselves. That's what he's got in a group of players, but that comes from the manager.
He's turning them into a very different beast, is Ange Postecoglou, and trying to get rid of that narrative that we know about Spurs and crumbling under pressure. Arsenal and Liverpool next. Is this the real kind of, I suppose, the way that we're going to measure the improvement that they've made?
Well, listen, this is the best time for them to play those teams. They're going into it full of confidence. They've got a whole load of points on the board. So even if they do lose or get a point out of them, it's not the end of the world.
I wouldn't judge him on it.
No, I wouldn't judge him on it at all.
I wouldn't judge him on those two
but
games.
it's an early indicator.
I would judge him on what happens after these two games.
Okay. Right, time for a quick break. But in a few minutes, we'll be heading to Goodison Park, a venue that Arsenal hadn't won at since 2017. And the two went head-to-head, and could the Toffees and Sean Dyche maintain that incredible record? We'll see for that one very shortly. At Goodison Park on Sunday, a surprise in the Gunners lineup as David Raya replaced Aaron Ramsdale in goal, while Fabio Vieira came in for Kai Havertz. Jim Beglin and Joe Spate were there for us.
We kept them really, really quiet. We created many, many chances. Probably the first goal as well should be allowed, and we dominated the game, and we are extremely happy to go away with a win, with a clean sheet, and with a good feeling.
You want results, and if you don't get them, you do lose that element of, how you believing in what you're doing. But to be honest, we've got some experienced players here. We've got some very good players. I appreciate it's a tough challenge against Arsenal anyway. They're a top side, we know that, and they played very well at times today. But still, it's looking at ourselves, what we can deliver.
Home certainly isn't where the heart is then for Everton. They've lost all 3 home league games this season. As it happens, all by a 1-0 scoreline. And even more damaging than that, the last time Everton scored more than once at home in the league was October 2022, almost a year ago.
I thought you were going to say when we were playing.
So did I.
Well, the way they're going, it might carry on that long. But that was under Frank Lampard. So Sean Dyche hasn't even scored more than 1 goal at home in the league as the Everton boss, which is quite incredible. 26% possession against Arsenal. 1 corner, 1 shot on target. What did you make of their approach today?
Relatively negative. But obviously, you're coming up against Arsenal, who are very neat and tidy in possession.
But
they move the ball really well.
Jermaine,
but they do, and that's the frustrating thing for me. You look at the players that Everton brought on today, and I was quite surprised to see Beto going off and to be replaced by Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Look, if you're up against it, put the 2 big lads up top and go long. Play direct. Make it really uncomfortable. You're not going to outpass Arsenal on the ball. You're not going to outmaneuver them. You're not going to outsmart them. But just take it back to the old school. Do what we used to see in the olden days, where the ball goes direct, everybody squeezes up. The 2 centre-halves for Arsenal would not have enjoyed playing up front against playing at the back against Beto and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So that's what they needed to do a little bit more.
Yeah.
Take it back to similar to what Sean Dyche used to do while he's at Burnley with Chris Wood and Ashley Barnes. Make it an uncomfortable game. But it was frustrating to see him take those guys and take them off.
To use an old school phrase, if you're going to try and bully Arsenal, at least do it right.
Yeah.
Don't be half-hearted in your approach. If you're going to have 26% possession and you're going to bypass the midfield and go long, do it properly and go long with purpose. And then what happens is you go long and direct. Then your back 4, you can get on the halfway line. Your midfield 3 can squeeze. You can get nice man for man. You can get what we call the knockdown and the bits, the 50-50s. And you can create pressure. You can create momentum. Fans get on board with it. They like a tackle. Something's happening in the final third. You manoeuvre some free kicks. You manoeuvre some shots and some corners. And you can see where you're going. I thought that performance today, it was worrying because of where Everton are. Obviously, 5 games in, 1 point.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, because we've talked about Guardiola over the years. We've talked about Postecoglou this season. We're talking about De Zerbi. I just start to wonder now what someone like a Graham Potter with that group of players could do, because I think they're underperforming.
Also, the thing is, this sense of apathy around Goodison Park. That's the first game under new owners. Not that you would have known it. There's no sense of excitement. There's no sense of what's round the corner.
But they lost. Who did they lose against? Fulham? Was it Wolves?
Yeah.
First 2 games?
Yeah.
You've got to pick up some serious points now because you're 5 games in, your relegation battle. The games that are coming up off the top of my head, they've got Brentford away. That's not going to be easy. There's every chance that Brentford might win that game. Then I think they've got 2 home games on the spin. They've got Bournemouth and Luton,
Yeah.
you have to take 6 points from those two games. It's a must.
You boys won't need reminding. They only survived on the final day of last season. But 5 games into this season, how worried are you for Everton?
Very. Look, there's no real identity in the way that Everton are playing. Like we said before, if you go direct, go back to front, and then squeeze up the pitch, that's an identity. That's a certain way of playing. At the moment, you don't really know what the game plan is.
No.
You know, get the ball out wide to Danjuma, get it out wide to Dwight McNeil. Put the ball in the box nice and early. They're not doing that either.
No, but there's no shame to losing to Arsenal because they are becoming quite a heavyweight force in the Premier League under Mikel Arteta. And as it happened, Leandro Trossard came off the bench, of course, for the injured Gabriel Martinelli to score the all-important goal. It's good, sort of like a training ground routine in some respects.
Well rehearsed.
Yeah.
It's very well rehearsed. It's patient.
You can see the movement of all the players. They all know where they're going to be. They all know what they're going to do. Saka pulled that little cutback to Trossard, and he didn't even look, which means, look, they've worked on it. Look at Trossard's movement there, just on the edge of the 18-yard box. Never standing still, always on the move. Saka, always on the move.
That's the manager. That's the manager in Arteta.
Drilling them in.
Yeah, thinking outside the box, thinking, right, if we get wide free kicks and we get corners, are we going to get any joy by putting it direct into the box? No chance. So you've got to try and come up with little game plans, wide free kicks, short corners, etc., to try and manoeuvre the centre-backs into uncomfortable positions. It's a great training ground goal.
Patience was the key for Arsenal because earlier in the game they thought they had scored through Gabriel Martinelli, but it was disallowed. Let's speak to former Premier League referee Chris Foy, who's a regular on the show. Chris, always good to speak to you. So explain to us, why was this chalked off?
Yeah, it was chalked off because when Gabriel passed the ball to Nketiah, he was in an offside position, and of course Arsenal retained possession. They passed the ball around and Martinelli scored a goal. I think the fly in the ointment that confused a few people was when Gabriel passed the ball forward. It actually deflected off Beto. It wasn't a deliberate play, and people were thinking because he's touched the ball, that makes him onside, which isn't the case. And the law's quite specific now when it talks about deliberate play deflection. There's the deflection. He comes back from an offside position in Nketiah. They retain possession in the attacking phase of play, and the goal is quite rightly disallowed. An excellent piece of VAR in that situation, Manish.
Yeah, and this is where we've got to make it clear. It's all about whether that touch was intentional or not.
Yeah, is it a deliberate play or is it a deflection? You're talking about, coordinating your body movement, the distance the ball travelled was very short, limited time to react. So it's the right call.
Yeah.
Great use of VAR, that, isn't it?
That's what we want.
You wouldn't
right?
spot that in real time.
No. In fact, you didn't spot it.
No.
I think very few people saw that.
What's intriguing is the initial pass, I think it was Gabriel, was looking to pass it out to the right back, Ben White. So the pass initially was going out to the right. Beto's touch took it directly through the middle of the pitch. So I was intrigued to know if that would have played any part of it, the direction of the pass. Chris?
No, it's not, Jermaine. It all talks about deliberate play or deflection, and that quite clearly was a deflection.
All right.
Okay.
Chris, thanks very much indeed. Arsenal fans will be delighted to see the back of Everton not ending their hoodoo, but the hold that they've had over them in recent times. Now let's head then to East London for a battle between two unbeaten sides, West Ham United and Manchester City. For the Hammers, Souček was preferred to Benrahma. 2 changes for the champions, Gvardiol and Bernardo Silva coming in for Ake and the injured Kovacic. Tony Gale and Seb Hutchinson watch this one.
Foden clips it in there to the back post. It was a free header, saved by Areola and saved again. Danger still not clear. And the third time and off the line. And surely no! Well, Areola preventing West Ham from conceding not once, but twice. Doku to draw the challenge and ball played across. Oh, Haaland! That's a big chance missed by the big man. Here's going to Sofa. Doku has to go some to get back in him. Sofa with loads of time. Will press it free in the middle. James Ward-Prowse. Classic West Ham United break. But one against the champions. David Moyes enjoyed that one, and so did the whole support, and so they should. Oh, the whole stadium's gone up here. What a goal! Rodri, and it goes to Doku. Doku chops back. Doku, brilliant, fine one, moves off the line.
What a great little battle, isn't it? He's turned in on that side there. Ball comes across. He's got to score, hasn't he, Haaland?
Alvarez to Doku. Had a bright first half at times, and here he goes. Oh, it's a moment of quality for this new talent in the Premier League. His first goal for Manchester City, and what a first goal. An immediate impact at the start of the second half. Alvarez off the post.
Alvarez with a free kick. There we go, that's a lovely dip. Look, well, that's going in.
Hangs it in there. Sidesa, save from Anderson. Hats again across to keep the scores level. Alvarez, the scoop ball, and they're in again. Well, that's what Manchester City do. They turn it around. Bernardo Silva collecting the perfect pass, and the champions showing their class.
Well, it's classy stuff. We love the scoop over the top, but I just think that West Ham could have dealt with that a lot better. They defended well today, but that was a point where they could have defended a bit better.
Bernardo Silva, and they have the numerical advantage here, City. Can he pick the right pass? It's Haaland! Finally hurting West Ham, but hurting West Ham again, and doing what he's done against everyone. He gets his goal. He always gets his goal. The champions pass another challenge with their customary quality. 5 wins from 5, and they had to do it the hard way. Jeremy Doku's equaliser, his brilliant equaliser, just after, or just a few seconds into the second half, allowed Manchester City the platform to turn this game around, and that's exactly what they did. Bernardo Silva and Haaland adding to the goals.
You're just never quite sure how teams kind of adapt again after an international break, but there's no doubts over this Manchester City and the wealth of talent that they've got. A great kind of comeback win in many respects. And look, Grealish is injured, Doku comes in.
Pep's back.
Pep's back in the dugout, and he's back, by the way, he's better.
He's better.
Yeah. But how lively was Doku?
Oh, I mean, there's an argument at this present time to leave him in the side, and Jack Grealish has got to fight his way back in the side, because this kid has started brilliant. I mean, he's so direct, he's so quick, he's got loads of skill. He's a nightmare for fullbacks. I mean, I love the way he uses Sofal as a screen there. He deliberately has him where he gets onside, and he deliberately uses the West Ham player to have him in the eye line of Areola when he takes a shot on. That's deliberate. That's amazing for a young player.
He's been watching you dance as well, hasn't he?
Do you know what's interesting, actually? The way he was so direct reminded me of Jack Grealish at Villa when he first arrived at City, but then had to change his game the Pep way. I just want Pep to let Doku play the way he does naturally.
There might be a time being a young player,
not get it drummed out of him in some
respects.
respect.
No, Pep. I don't think Pep will do that to him. I think Pep's one of the best at letting players fly in the top third of the pitch. But there will be a time when his form, being a youngster, will dip. Yeah. But then all of a sudden you go, oh, Jack Grealish. Yeah. Oh, Bernardo Silva.
In you go.
Yeah. Phil Foden. In you go.
Jermaine,
that rotation there.
For Erling Haaland, and we're always waxing lyrical about him, but this was a rare off day, wasn't it? So he missed 5 of his 6 big chances. His expected goals at the end of the 90 was actually 2.5.
Well, he's human.
Yes.
He's not a machine
this
or a
miss in
robot.
particular was a real eyebrow raiser, wasn't it?
It was. It cost me loads of points on my fantasy team.
And a few thousand around the world as well.
But look, all this is... The thing that would worry me or concern me is if he wasn't getting in these areas and he wasn't having these opportunities and chances. But even though he gets in even though he got in these positions against West Ham and he missed these massive chances, he still continued to get himself in those areas, and it didn't bother him, it didn't faze him. But the one that did come to him, listen, he made sure that he made the most of it. Look, he's showing great determination to get on the end of the cross. He makes a good, clean connection, but it doesn't bother him. This one here, great first touch, sets himself with the second touch, and that finish is an absolute rocket.
I think sometimes we can look a little bit too deep and go, oh, well, you know, he hasn't got his finishing boots on there. He's not as good as what he was.
Stupid,
and you go, come on, man, he's had 6 great chances. That tells you that the team are playing for him. And on another day, he's going to come away with 4.
That's the highest XG he's ever had in his time in the Premier League.
And he will take that
2.56.
every game. If you've got that as a striker every game,
Yep.
you're banging 52 in again.
Yeah. Good word on West Ham, by the way. I still think they had good spells. You can see there's an improvement under David Moyes.
It's been incredible. And the job that he's done, Manish, over the years has been really underrated. A European trophy, a semi-final. I think he's had a ninth and a seventh in the Premier League. I think the job that he's done, the start that he's had, the crop of players that he's bought and got to work with, I think he's doing a magnificent job.
Yeah. All right. Now, Saturday's early kick-off saw Liverpool travelling to Wolverhampton Wanderers. The big team news for Jurgen Klopp's side, a first Premier League start for 20-year-old centre-back Jarell Quansah. Luis Diaz and Darwin Núñez were named on the bench, with commentators Andy Townsend and Bill Leslie.
Great work from Neto. And in! Juanita!
Terrific goal. After a really bright start. Alisson unable to keep that one out.
Neto, brilliant against Gomez. Oh, Cunha got it all wrong. Oh. On a plate and he dropped it.
Got to score that. What on earth Cunha is doing there, I have no idea. He's jumped, he's hanging, he's up far too early. And that is a sitter.
Jota. Still 90 seconds of this first period. And Liverpool to try and get something back. Salah made a mess of it. Brilliant block. Once and twice. And Solobsai. Salah makes the save. And in stoppage time at the end of the first half, Wolves have their first real moment of concern.
That's how your lead can go in a flash. It really can.
Szoboszlai. Very intricate, but it might come to Diogo Jota. It will come to Salah, and it's touched home for a Liverpool equaliser. Cody Gakpo was the man positioned to touch it in.
It's a shot come across from Mo Salah. And Cody Gakpo this time is in the right position just to apply the finishing touch.
Salah, Diaz, Núñez. It's Darwin Núñez. Oh, Salah was out well.
Really good goalkeeping from Jose. So he's out really quick. Look, spreading himself.
Robertson to Salah. Robertson again. It's Robertson. On the occasion of his 200th Premier League appearance for Liverpool, he's popped up with a priceless goal.
There will be a minimum of 8 minutes added time. 8 minutes.
Salah. Sizing up his options. Finding Elliott, who off the post finds a third for Liverpool. If there was doubt before, there is none now.
It's going well wide, isn't it? Look at that. The shot's going well wide from Harvey Elliott. It ends up in the back of the net.
Well, the mark of a side's character is how you respond to adversity, and Jurgen Klopp, after a fairly tepid first half performance from his men in red, turned it around in the second half in the grand manner. Final score at Molineux, Wolves 1, Liverpool 3.
Yeah, Liverpool only 5 games into this season, and that's already their third comeback of the campaign. They don't make it easy for themselves, did they?
It was awful. I mean, I never fancy a team away from home on a 12:30 kickoff.
Yeah.
Your sleep's disrupted. You're trying to shovel pasta in at 9 o'clock in the morning. I know these boys are pampered, but we've been there, and it's difficult. And I think you saw that in the first half performance. The amount of times Alexis McAllister was giving the ball away, and he had no rhythm. And it was like, please get the half time, because Wolves started well. They scored the goal, but could have been 2 or 3-0 up, and the game could have been out of sight, like last season. And then they needed the half-time team talk, and they needed some minutes in the legs to try and get themselves going. And second half, we were so much better.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of headlines would belong to Luis Diaz, who, of course, was away on international duty. He came on at half-time, one of a couple of substitutes that turned the game around. But we have to talk about Mo Salah, because he turned up with a couple more assists, taking his...
You say couple, should have been 3.
It should have been
not
3.
Having that
because, of course, Harvey Elliott's goal went down as an own goal to Hugo Bueno.
Well, we'll see it.
He
We'll
doesn't
see
get
it.
it.
We'll see
anyway,
it.
but the 2 assists here.
Yeah, the first one is absolutely perfect for Cody Gakpo right after the second half started as well, which is the best way to kick off the second half, especially the way Liverpool were fortunate enough to be going in.
That's a lovely ball. We've seen this ball, haven't we?
Yeah, but it's a great run from Robertson as well. Opens his body up really well. Great finish. Very difficult technically to finish.
Well, I want this law change.
Should he get 3 assists?
Yes!
But this is an own goal, Dom.
Well, so what you're saying then, Harvey Elliott should get an assist for having the shot.
But the shot was going wide. It came off Hugo Bueno.
It's an own goal.
Mo
It's going
Salah,
wide.
I know, I get that, but Mo Salah can't do any more than put it on a plate for Harvey Elliott. Because if you want to take it to the nth degree, because it was an OG, does Harvey Elliott get an assist?
Does Elliott get an assist?
Ridiculous.
No, the answer is.
What that means is those 2 assists that do count, Don, take him to 201 goal involvements in 130. Where are we? There you go, 62 assists. 139
and he got labelled
goals.
greedy a few years ago.
Because he is.
I think he got.
He's not.
He's a forward.
How can be greedy with assist numbers like that?
I think he also got labelled a one-season wonder as well, which is also quite incredible.
Some player. Phenomenal. Phenomenal player.
Right? Some player.
And I know people cringe at the term mentality monsters that was coined by Jurgen Klopp, but when he's got new players in that framework, a new look midfield, no Trent, no... he had no Trent and no Virgil van Dijk, right?
No Konate.
No Konate, but they still produced, you know, to come back from...
Do you know, Manish, right? I was when Jurgen Klopp left Borussia Dortmund, the chief executive, Hans Watzke, said years later, he said, the biggest mistake we made was not sacking half the team. And we sacked Jurgen Klopp. We should have kept Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah.
I think the transition that Liverpool have had now, when he was under a little bit of pressure, self sort of pressure. I think now what they've done, Liverpool, have been very quick at overhauling their midfield. So all of a sudden, if you're a manager, you've got new sets of ears to tune in, not rather than having the same ears that are saying that or hearing the same things over and over again for 7 years. Now,
refresh with the squad.
Now it's a refresh, and different ears are going, oh, this training's amazing. Oh, this manager's amazing. It's getting new. So I think they've gone really under the radar on the work that they've done. By transforming their midfield. It's been phenomenal. And for Wolves, it looks like a Rolls Royce.
No, absolutely. For Wolves, though, that's 4 defeats in 5, and their next game against Luton takes on even more significance. Let's see how Aston Villa got on against Crystal Palace now. Roy Hodgson wasn't present at Villa Park. He'd been unwell in the build-up. Hopefully he's feeling better soon. Your commentators for this one, Paul Robinson and David Stow.
Oh, that might roll for Watkins. It has done. And Sam Johnston bails out Crystal Palace. It was a gift and one that was passed up.
Ollie Watkins is in and you expect him to score. It's a great save by Sam Johnston because what he does well, he holds his ground. He doesn't run at the player.
Diaby takes it down beautifully and slots it home with aplomb. But there is a question mark hanging over the goal now as VAR does its work.
That's going to take another really good goal away from us, isn't it, VAR? But that's what it was brought in for.
Well, the first touch deserved a goal, really, didn't it? But it's not going to get one. Mateta away from Torres, looking for Edouard, and the slip from Martinez, and it's a brilliant start to the second half for Crystal Palace. The goals are well and truly flowing for the Eagles, and Odsonne Edouard is front and centre again. Watkins, Dean, so many in the middle, Watkins, Palace with the block, on they go with Bailey, and Watkins again, and the woodwork saves Palace, and Sam Johnston.
We saw it last week, the week before, didn't we, with Jordan Beckford, off the post, off the bar, off the goalkeeper's head. It's the worst feeling in the world as a goalkeeper.
Dean, and it goes, oh, what a hit!
What a first touch and what a finish. You will not see a better goal this weekend.
Tielemans, Watkins, down he goes, penalty kick for Aston Villa, and all of a sudden it's all going wrong for Crystal Palace. Douglas Luiz potentially can turn 1 point into 3 for Aston Villa here. He takes his time, takes aim and buries it. For so long they look to be heading for defeat. They may well have just won it. It's Diaby with 2 to look for, and it's Bailey, and it's over. It's Aston Villa's day. There's your grandstand finish.
You do feel for Crystal Palace, you really do. But Aston Villa just put the foot on the gas when it was needed.
Villa victorious. And Palace will wonder how the game got away from them. Aston Villa usually strike early. Today they struck late. And how? A tough day for Palace in the end. Without Roy Hodgson, who we wish well. It finishes here at Villa Park. Aston Villa 3, Crystal Palace 1.
It's yet another late comeback in the Premier League, but not without controversy. And we'll get to that in a second. But let's have a look at Villa's equalising goal for 1-1. 19-year-old John Duran comes off the bench and he hits an absolute belter, Jermaine.
Honestly, everything he does here is absolutely outrageously good. He takes it on his chest, facing the wrong way, swivels, and he catches the ball as it's rising up as well, all in one fluid motion.
I'm going to go from the old school.
That is such a difficult technique.
Yeah.
It's such a difficult technique to
execute.
It's unbelievable.
I'm going to go from the old school, fellas. Women watching in. Tony Yeboah.
Oh, Leeds.
What a finish.
What a hammer of a foot, by the way.
Oh, my days. That was similar, wasn't it? Chest volley.
Yeah. But by the way, this fella's only 19.
He's got some ability.
You can see why they've invested in him.
You'd work on him, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You'd work on him.
Absolutely would.
On the training pitch.
100%. There are elements of his game that he needs to work on, don't get me wrong. But from what we've seen there, in front of goal, his confidence, wow.
Right, well, that was before a rather controversial moment, because we got into injury time, of course. Villa got themselves a penalty. Ollie Watkins fouled by Chris Richards. Chris is back with us. If you can take up the rest of the story for us, Chris.
Yeah, I watched this game live on Saturday, and when I saw the events unfold, I was more than convinced it was a penalty kick. Darren England was the referee, and as you say, there was a challenge on Ollie Watkins by Chris Richards in the penalty area, and he points to the spot. And as we know with penalty kicks, they're automatically checked. The VAR in this situation was Rob Jones. He's looked at it. I think he may well have felt that Richards got a slight touch on the ball, and he recommended a review. So once we know a review is going to be recommended, Darren goes to the referee review area and looks at the footage. Now, just because he goes to the screen doesn't mean he's going to change his mind. He's looked at all the available angles, and there was nothing there that suggested that he should change his mind, and he actually stuck with the on-field decision. And in my opinion, it was the right thing to do.
But Chris, that's very rare, right? Because whenever VAR are recommending an on-screen review, pitch-side review, we're all of that thinking that the referee on the pitch is going to change his mind.
Well, we did see a number of these last season, Manish, and I think that's possibly the first one we've seen of this season. But I think, when Darren's made the decision on field, and again, he's had the time to look at it in the review area, he's comfortable with that decision, and I'm happy with it as well. I thought it was a penalty first up.
Don, was it a penalty?
We had a good little Barney, me and Chris, on Saturday night after this, because we went for lunch afterwards, and I was like...
So it ended well then if you went for lunch
afterwards. It was in this building.
It depends on who paid.
No one paid.
You had no choice.
I was convinced that Chris Richards got a touch on the ball first, and I thought that was a clean tackle. He doesn't get the whole of the ball. He gets the top end of the ball, then takes the man and ball again. But I think on first viewing just here, I think the defender then gets the ball.
Yeah.
And I thought, in my humble opinion, I thought that was very harsh. And I thought he was going to change his mind. I've got no problem with the referee sticking with his mind once he sees it.
Yeah.
Whatever the referee sees and the courage of his convictions, you make what you think's the right decision.
So you're saying no penalty?
I say no penalty.
Okay, Jermaine?
Penalty, strikers' union, all day long.
No, come on.
No. Serious?
Look, the thing is, what does it for me, right, is he dives in with the wrong foot. So he's slide tackling with his left foot in the penalty area. It's the wrong foot to try and get in front of
but you can't penalise him for that, because that's a technique thing.
But then, as a striker, I'm going to put my body in the way. And that's exactly what Ollie Watkins does. Whether he gets a little bit of the ball first and then a lot of the player and then the ball, I think is irrelevant. I think it's a penalty.
Interesting to see whether you two go out for lunch after this. Chris, thanks very much indeed. OK, time for another quick break on the programme, but in the final part of the show, we'll see the highlights from Bournemouth against Chelsea, with Mauricio Pochettino's side looking for only their second win of the season. Did they manage it against the winless Cherries? Find out in just a few moments. Welcome back to the weekend wrap. Now, the first match on Sunday saw Bournemouth facing Chelsea on the south coast. A couple of notable absentees for the Blues, with Moises Caicedo injured and Ben Chilwell on the bench. Mauricio Pochettino handing a first Premier League start to 19-year-old Leslie Ugochukwu. Watching this one, Matt Holland and Jim Proudfoot.
Jackson's layoff, he gets it back from Mudryk, it is Jackson, and it's off the post.
Doesn't catch it as cleanly as he'd like to have done. Still almost finds its way into the bottom corner.
That's clever. It's Ouattara! That's outstanding goalkeeping.
Robert Sanchez off his line so quickly and makes a brilliant save.
Jackson. Hoped for by Mudryk, it'll break here for Gallagher. Good save. Really good stop by Neto. Chelsea still can't find that way through.
Brilliant goalkeeping again.
Raheem Sterling sizing up the moment. And driving in brilliantly off the underside of the bar and in from Colwell, but the flag's up against him.
It's almost perfection. Well, the goal scorer's off. Colwell's off. Did it go over the line? Look how close it was. It couldn't have done.
Well, that's the angle that proves that the whole of the ball wasn't over the line. The goal decision system has worked. Chelsea with the monopoly on corners so far. Billing heads this latest one away. Back from Gallagher, breaks Sterling's way. Jackson. And it's off Neto. One Chelsea player smacked into the face of another as Colwell ended up wearing Jackson's shot.
Chelsea were scratching their heads as to how they're not ahead in this game.
It's going to be Billing with his left.
Gallagher gets the vital touch.
Billing. Cliver in the box. Christie arriving too. It's Solanke. Denied a goal against his former club by Sanchez. Palmer able to take it on here. Bournemouth defending, backing off. It's Raheem Sterling. Forced wide. Palmer. Good save. Then the effort that comes back in from Madsen. Did it hit a hand?
Gets in the way of the attempt. No hand. Immediately he said no.
And it is another rendition of the same familiar story, with recurring themes for Chelsea and Mauricio Pochettino. Full of possession and pace, lacking potency and precision. Victory eluding them.
Yeah, not happening for Chelsea still. Under Mauricio Pochettino, 5 points from 5 games. But the standout stats there is that of the 15 big chances they've created this season, they've missed 12 of them. For all the recruitment and exciting talent they've got on board, Jermaine, it just isn't clicking for them in the final third.
No, it's not. And that's worrying because you look at the players they've brought in. Obviously, they've got one or two key players that are out injured, but Jackson up top, who I think is quite lively.
Yeah.
He finds himself in good positions, good areas. He's full of energy, puts himself about. He's still trying to find his feet. That's something that we come to expect now. Mudryk as well is a bit of a disappointment when it comes to the final third. But all in all, look, there's so many players coming and going at Chelsea. There's nobody really settled. So when you haven't got players that are settled and you've got a manager that's trying to implement a new style of play on them as well, it just seems a little bit disjointed, especially with the amount of money that's been spent on them.
They did create chances, as we saw there, against Bournemouth.
Yeah.
And Mauricio Pochettino, I know now, is feeling really frustrated that he just can't get somebody to finish them off.
The trouble is, Manish, when you buy... I mean, this is really unlucky from Raheem Sterling, by the way. I mean, that's technique-wise, that's an amazing effort. And they did have the chances. But I think with Chelsea, like Jermaine said, there's been a turnover of players coming, you know, through the door, out the door. Out the door is not really a problem because you've got a lot of players to work with. Normally, over the years, I think me and Jermaine and yourself could try and predict nearly every team in the Premier League's best 11. I've got no idea what Chelsea's best 11 is.
Yeah.
And nor do I think is the manager. And that's not having to go at Pochettino because he's trying to work with some young players and they're trying to find their feet. And some of them, you know, quite a few of them are into the Premier League for the very first time. It's not easy for them young boys to hit the ground running. So I think you've just got, as a Chelsea fan, I think you've got to stay patient. You've got to trust what the manager's trying to do. I know it's difficult because you want to be in the top four.
But this is Chelsea, right?
I know it
and
is.
Chelsea have a history of impatient owners.
But the name doesn't matter this season, I think. Because normally, I think over the years, Manish, I always think Chelsea have had the most bizarre model of any team in the Premier League.
Yeah. Which have worked.
But they've won Champions Leagues.
Yeah.
They've won domestic trophies. They've won Premier League. So it worked. But it was a bit of a bonkers model, sacking managers every, whatever it was, 4, 5, 6 months. Now I think they've got to a time where they've got Pochettino in. They can't go again thinking about changing the coaches, managers. They've got to give this group of players time. And it might just get worse before it gets better.
Do you think, Jermaine, they'll stick with him no matter what?
Well, they've got to. They've got to. I completely agree with everything that Don said there. There's so many players that have left the club. There's so many players that have come in. There's so many moving parts that just need to be settled.
Yeah.
And you can't find you can't settle players if you keep on sacking managers. So you need to stick with the current manager, who's a great manager, by the way.
Yeah, he is. And there's no debating that issue.
No.
It's just about what's being thought from those above him. Now, the late game on Saturday saw Newcastle taking on Brentford at St James's Park. This, of course, was a huge game as far as Eddie Howe was concerned. Newcastle have lost their last 3.
Yeah.
They've got Champions League on the horizon for the first time in 20 years. They needed to win this one.
Yeah, normally, Manish, you know, you always talk about the performance. That's the consequence of the win, the other way around. But I think from Newcastle, this particular game, going into the game against Milan in the Champions League, this was all about the win. You know, when you've lost 3 games, even though, by the way, they were extremely tough fixtures, it was a case of, right, let's get back to St James's Park. It's all about the win. They played well. He went with a bit of youth.
Yeah. This goal, incidentally, Callum Wilson thought he scored it. That was disallowed for a foul on the goalkeeper, Mark Flecken. His hand was just being held down at the time. It was well spotted. And then there was a penalty, which went... Now, this is interesting.
It is. It's a penalty.
Out comes Flecken and Gordon. They collide. Was he pulling out of the challenge?
It doesn't matter. Look at the manner in which he goes to close him down. If he's anywhere else on the pitch, that's a free kick. So why is it not a penalty? Just because he tries to pull his leg out?
You've got to ask the question, what is Flecken doing running out when the ball's going towards the byline anyway? Callum Wilson's penalty record is unbelievable. 10 out of 10 in Newcastle.
Just signed a new deal as well.
Yeah. Good time to him.
Yeah.
So penalties are such a difficult, so difficult to implement. Like practice, and you know, fortunately we saw the best of it there.
The referee Craig Pawson gave a penalty here for a handball on Brian Mbeumo.
That would
but
be harsh.
unchecked by VAR, you could see Harvey Barnes had pushed him towards the ball.
And even if he didn't push him, I think if you're you know, underneath the ball and someone heads the ball off your arm 6 inches away, I would have thought that would have been extremely harsh. But that's a big win for Newcastle.
Yeah, not the most convincing, but that doesn't matter, right?
Listen, it doesn't matter. When you take into account the last 3 games, 3 losses on the bounce, it doesn't matter how it came about, they had to get the 3 points.
I'll tell you what you could tell, though, and you've been there. In fact, you've played there, but at St James's Park, it was incredible. Nervy, by the way.
Well, it was because when you go 3 losses on the spin, where the excitement and the atmosphere at St James's has been one of the best grounds to go at and watch, I think, over the last 18 months, I think they realised this was such a big game because it was all about the win, because this is a team that's in the Champions League. And when you go 3 losses on the spin, you're drifting towards the bottom half of the league. It's important to get back on the horse and get the 3 points again. That should give them confidence going into the AC Milan game and then going into future Premier League fixtures.
OK, well, for our final match, let's head then to Craven Cottage for Fulham against Luton. Luton had lost all 3 of their games so far this season. Fulham hoping to respond after the 5-1 defeat to Manchester City last time round. Luton came closest first. They've only scored 2 goals so far this season. They could have done with that one going in. They're asking more questions.
They've got to score that.
Great chance. Look, the thing is, in this game especially, Luton found themselves in great positions where they had a chance to score, but they just weren't clinical enough. Now, if they continue doing that, making it difficult for opposition teams to get past them, they'll be in with half a chance of staying in the Premier League. I don't think they'll be able to. I think it's going to be a bit too difficult for them, especially when, look, it's a good stop from the goalkeeper, but he parries it into a dangerous area. The defenders are a little bit slow to react. You've got to make it super difficult when you're a team that's just been promoted to the Premier League for opposition teams to break you down.
So at some point, I think when you're down there, Manish, somehow you've got to stop the bleeding, and that might just take a 0-0. It might take a 1-1. It might take a draw. It might take something just to try and stop the rot, and it just gives that little bit of momentum. The longer you go on, when you're losing games in the Premier League, when you're in the bottom 3, it's a really tough grind.
Yeah,
it's another harsh lesson in finishing, though, isn't it?
This
is what happens in the Premier League. You step up from the Championship.
It's a brutal league. It is.
Got to be ruthless.
Yeah, and as it stands, and because that's their 4th consecutive defeat, then on their return to the top flight, it means that Luton are propping up the Premier League table as things stand. No points to Rob Edwards' side. There they are in 20th position. Burnley have yet to play in the match week, of course. They're taking on Nottingham Forest. They're also looking to get off the mark for Everton and Sheffield United, still without a win to their name. Wolves, though, have got a 3-pointers, but they were just unable to pick up on that in the latest match week. Look at the big names. Chelsea are in there. Manchester United in the bottom half, although Newcastle are in the bottom half, but they did win. And that was the all-important one as far as Eddie Howe is concerned. At the top end, it's no surprise to see Manchester City winning 5 out of 5, 15 points. Unbeaten Tottenham and Liverpool hot on their heels, as, of course, are Arsenal. In fact, it's Spurs against Arsenal.
What a test.
At Arsenal.
What a
both
test.
on 13 points. What the makings of a cracker, right, Jermaine?
I cannot wait, from a neutral perspective, I cannot wait to see how that pans out.
How's Ange Ball going to cope with Mikel Arteta?
No, it's great. I think it makes a really open game. I think I don't want to put the curse on it, but I do not see it a 0-0. I see plenty of goals. I couldn't tell you which way it's going to go. But I think you're looking at early tests for Ange and Mikel Arteta in terms of who comes out on top. They'll obviously get the bragging rights, but whoever loses, you might think, if it's Arsenal, you might think they're going to go a little bit away from Man City. So it's important both teams go for it.
One game left of the match week, and that's Nottingham Forest against Burnley, who've lost their first 3. Who's going to come out of that one with the points?
Both teams, 1 point each, I reckon.
You think that is a draw?
It's going to be too difficult to go either way.
Forest.
Yeah. Who look a totally different proposition, don't they, this season after the last. Now that, their manager has managed